Guppies aren't difficult to feed and they aren't picky eaters, so they'll probably try to eat almost anything you give them. With that said, while you can feed low-quality food to your guppies, but you really shouldn't. In order to make sure your guppies remain healthy, active, and robust, you want to give them the best foods possible. The food that they eat can impact their color and their breeding behavior as well. So for the best results, feed the best foods. So what are the best foods for guppies? Before we dive into specifics, I think it's important to consider what they eat in the wild. Wild guppies in their native habitat would often eat small aquatic insects and other invertebrates. This would include mosquito larvae, daphnia, and scuds, among many others. They also eat some plant matter, such as algae and decaying plant matter. In other words, they are omnivorous, and they enjoy a varied diet. Now, in a home aquarium, the key is to provide a varied diet as well, and one that is composed of the best foods. So once again, what is the best foods for guppies? Let's break it down based on each category. We'll start with live foods, because at a categorical level, this is arguably the best types of food for guppies. It closely mimics what guppies eat in the wild. Not surprisingly, guppies tend to get the most excited eating live foods. Some of the best live foods for guppies would be brine shrimp, daphnia, white worms, and Grindal worms, just to name a few. It should be noted that many breeders feed brine shrimp to produce the best guppies, and it definitely works. Especially the newly hatched brine shrimp are densely packed with nutrients. Daphnia is another great food source for guppies. They are especially good as a source of roughage, helping make sure guppies do not get bloated. Another benefit to daphnia is the fact that they can be cultured with very little input. All you need is a consistent source of green algae water. There are many different species of daphnia, but if you have large guppies, Daphnia magna would be great. For medium-sized guppies, Daphnia pulex would be great. For smaller guppies, Moina would be great. Next, white worms and Grindal worms are another good source of live fish food. These are both annelid worm species, and it's no surprise that fish love worms, including guppies. Both white worms and Grindal worms are similar in terms of their nutritional value. They are both high in protein, making them a good food source if you are trying to condition female guppies for breeding, or trying to grow smaller guppies quickly. Grindal worms are smaller in size and grow well in room temperature. On the other hand, white worms are larger in size and grow well in slightly cooler temperature. While live foods are great, often packed with the best protein and fats, it's important to mention some of their cons as well. First, they can carry pathogen and disease, so collecting them from a contaminated source should be avoided. Therefore, cultured live foods is usually the safest and most reliable source. Second, they aren't actually always reliable, since some live cultures are prone to crashing. Therefore, while live foods are some of the best foods for your guppies, it shouldn't be the only source of food available. Moving on from live foods, the next best type of fish food are frozen foods. Frozen foods retain much of the nutritional value, but they're more convenient than live foods. They will remain unspoiled for a long period of time in the freezer, and all you need to do is to break off a small portion of it during each feeding. For example, frozen brine shrimp from San Francisco Bay brand is great, and they're available in many local fish stores. Of course, you can freeze your own batches of food as well, using a mini ice cube tray. Besides brine shrimp, these trays can be used to freeze small blocks of blanched spinach as well. The last category would be dry foods. This is a big category, and this is what the majority of fish keepers will be feeding their guppies. Dry foods, or commercial aquarium fish foods, are very convenient, with many options available, so it's no surprise that they are very popular. Dry foods would include flake foods, pellet foods, wafers, and freeze-dried foods. Generally speaking, dry foods are the easiest way of providing your fish with a balanced diet on a regular basis. This would include proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and vitamins. With so many options available, the key is to choose one that is made of high-quality ingredients. For guppies, you'd want to lean towards more protein content than your standard goldfish flakes. Some manufacturers with a reputation of producing quality fish food would include Hikari, New Life Spectrum, Cobalt, Omega-1, and Northfin, among many others. Besides these, Freeze-dried food, such as bloodworms, daphnia, and scuds, would be great as well. These dry foods are convenient and have a relatively long shelf life, but be sure to keep it fresh by storing it in a cool, dry place. Once exposed to moisture, these dry foods can deteriorate quite rapidly. If you suspect that the fish food has gone bad, throw it away. Overall, the best way to feed guppies for most fish keepers would be to choose one or more high-quality flake or pellet food as their staple diet, and supplement it with treats to vary their diet. Treats would include various freeze-dried foods, frozen foods, and live foods. The top favorite treats among guppies would be brine shrimp, daphnia, mosquito larvae, whiteworms, grindal worms, scuds, and blanched spinach.